He didn't walk in with swagger. He wasn't there to impress. He just wanted to see the rifle again, that old model he once carried through jungle mud and desert heat. Back when orders came on crumpled paper and survival was measured in hours, he didn't expect a ceremony, didn't need anyone to thank him. Man, limping, wearing a cap that had lost its color, with the faint outline of the SEAL trident almost worn smooth. The man leaned on the glass counter, steady but slow, and cleared his throat politely. The clerk didn't even look up from his phone. "Yeah," he mumbled. "You need something?" The old man smiled faintly. "Just wondering if you still carry the XM177E2 model, the replica. I heard you had one on display." The clerk squinted. "Something like that." Behind him, the second employee chuckled. "That thing's heavy, Grandpa. Not really a wall hanger for your fireplace, huh?" "I didn't say I wanted to fire it," the man replied calmly. "I carried one like it once. Wouldn't mind seeing how it feels now. Unless you're buying, this isn't really a museum. I won't touch it without permission, not even hurt. Just a kind of deep, bone-worn disappointment." He adjusted his jacket, and then he turned, quietly, slowly, the limp more pronounced. One noticed the woman near the ammunition shelves, ball cap low, a duffel bag slung over one shoulder, gym t-shirt from a Navy PT program in faded print. She watched him leave. She saw everything. And 2 minutes later, she stepped outside, pulled out a phone, and made one call. 3 words: "He's here now." At exactly 11:42 a.m., the parking lot in front of Valor Tactical Supplies began to shift. One SUV, matte black, no markings, pulled up slow and deliberate. It parked engine idle, no music, no movement. Then another, then a third dot, no sirens, no flash dot, just quiet and purpose. Inside the shop, the clerks were back on their phones, laughing at a meme, talking about what they'd do if someone tried to rob the place. Still clueless, then the chime rang. 3 times, 12 men entered. They weren't loud, they weren't angry, even though nothing had been said. Even the air conditioning seemed to fall silent. The first man through had a buzz cut, clean civilian clothes, and the unmistakable stare of someone who had seen too much and still signed up for more. They didn't need uniforms. They were by how they moved. Compact, controlled, every step placed like it had consequence, like they were used to clearing rooms. They didn't go to the rifles. They didn't browse. They formed a semicircle near the counter. One clerk glanced up. Hey fellas, looking for something in particular?" No answer, just 12 pairs of eyes, steady, measured. The second clerk stood slowly. Then the oldest among them stepped forward. He wasn't massive, just still, a calm that could make glass crack. His trident tattoo was just visible near the collar. Of his shirt, his tone was even unshaken. "1 hour ago," he began, "a man walked in here." The clerks shifted. He didn't ask for anything, didn't want applause. He asked to see a rifle. Not to buy, just to hold. A pause. You told him he wasn't welcome. The younger clerk tried to interrupt. "I think there's a misunderstanding." The man raised one hand, not to silence him, just to stop him. Like a mission had begun, and no one else was needed now. "He's our brother," the SEAL continued. "He's not the kind to speak for himself. So now we're speaking for him." From his pocket, he placed something gently on the counter. A scorched fabric patch. "Hole in my side, the size of a damn baseball. That man dragged me for 22 hours, never left me. Pulled this off my uniform before I lost consciousness. Told me later," eyes locked forward. "Of the man they kicked out, same jaw, same presence, James Beckett," the second SEAL said. "Master Chief, SEAL Team 3, served in Vietnam, Panama, Mogadishu, Iraq, retired in 2004. You called him Grandpa." The store was dead silent. Customers had stopped walking. Someone lowered their phone camera, as if realizing this wasn't a scene to record it was a moment to respect. "We're not here to make a scene," the lead SEAL said. "We don't want discounts. Don't need apologies." He stepped back. "But when you turned your back on him, you turned your back on all of us." Then they turned, one by one, and walked out. No shouting, chest beating, just exit. Like the point had been made in full. Outside, a few people had started to gather. Veterans by the look of them, some wearing unit patches, some just standing quietly with hands in their pockets inside the store. The clerk who made the grandpa comment hadn't moved. He was still staring at the photos, still staring at the burned patch, still realizing the world would find out by the time the last seal walked out of the shop. No one inside moved for a full minute. The scorched flag patch still sat on the counter. The photo still leaned against the register, capturing 8 men younger than they felt, older than they looked, covered in dirt and grit, staring at a camera like they didn't care if the film developed or not. Right in the center, James Beckett, barely smiling, arms crossed. A presence that didn't need to shout. And now, everyone was staring at that same man in a different way. The clerks didn't talk, didn't text. The air in the shop felt like it had lost its oxygen. One of them tried to say something, maybe a joke to break the wait, but it died halfway. Up his throat at 1:47 p.m., a woman who had quietly watched from the ammo section posted the photo online. Caption: when they disrespected a SEAL, 12 more walked in and said nothing. Within an hour, it had been reposted to 3 veteran Facebook groups, then 10, then 100 by 2:15 p.m. Someone commented under the original photo, "Who's the man in the picture?" And that's when the internet went to work. One name surfaced again and again. James Charles Beckett. Nobody under 40 had ever heard of him. But among the military community, the name carried gravity. The kind of weight you don't find on Google. The kind that circulates in classified briefings and barroom whispers. A SEAL's SEAL. A man who didn't do interviews, didn't sign book deals, no tell-all, Panama, Mogadishu, Iraq. Awards: Silver Star, Bronze Star with Valor, 2 Purple Hearts. Dozens of unlisted commendations. Confirmed extractions, 37. Confirmed public statements, 0. No autobiography, no social media, no fame. Just a record of someone who showed up, finished the job, and disappeared again. One comment stood out more than the rest. He saved my uncle in '91 in Panama. They called him the Ghost. No one saw him coming, but when you needed him, he was already there. By 3:05 p.m., local media picked up the story. 12 Navy SEALs entered gun shop in silent protest after staff dismisses local veteran. The article didn't dramatize. It didn't need to. The facts were enough. An elderly man entered a tactical shop asking to see a replica rifle. He was mocked for his limp and asked to leave. 1 hour later, 12 men entered. None spoke. None threatened. They placed a photo and a patch on the counter. Then they left. Within hours, the town wasn't just buzzing. It was reeling. Reporters showed up at the shop, but the manager refused comment. Cameras captured a steady trickle of quiet visitors, most of them veterans coming in, not to buy, but to stand silently by the photo, to leave behind a patch, a coin, or a memory dot at 4:12 p.m. A veteran-owned blog published a short editorial title, "The Men Who Stand When You Can't." It ended with one line. James Beckett didn't need to speak. His silence was carried by 12 who knew why it mattered. The quote hit a nerve by 5 p.m. It was being shared in Instagram captions, Twitter banners, and even turned into a graphic, posted by the Navy Times. Meanwhile, inside the shop, nothing returned to normal. Customers no longer asked for scopes or ammo. They asked in whispers, "Is he okay? Does he live nearby? Did he really carry someone out under fire for 22 hours?" The clerks who had been so quick to laugh earlier were now too ashamed to answer. The photo stayed on the counter. The patch stayed beside it. No one dared move them. The shop owner, who hadn't been present during the incident, arrived just before closing. He didn't speak to his employees. He walked straight to the wall, unlocked the case, and removed the XM177E2, replicas the same rifle Beckett had asked to see. He placed it gently on the counter, beside the photo, then pulled a piece of paper from his notepad and wrote something by hand. He carried it once. We'll carry the memory now. He framed it, slid it beside the rifle, and locked the case again, but this time from the outside. A display not for sale. A memory set in glass. By 6:15 p.m., someone placed a single white flower at the front door, then a folded American flag, then a coin, then a note. Respect for all the ones we didn't see. No ceremony, no anthem, just presents. And then came the kids. A high school senior posted a TikTok about Beckett. Just a montage of old SEAL training footage with the caption, "They kicked out a legend. His brothers walked in." No words, no threats, just presence. Remember the name. It racked up 2.3 million views overnight, and every comment echoed the same thing. This is what respect looks like. We forgot these men existed. The loudest thing was their silence. God, I hope I never forget this story. Across town, Beckett remained unaware. He sat at the back booth of his usual diner, same black coffee, no cream, no sugar. The waitress didn't mention the news. Neither did he. He hadn't changed a thing. Still walked the same route home. Still nodded at the gas station clerk, who never knew his name. Still wore the faded trident, cap pulled low on his brow. But something had changed around him. Not out loud in the glances, in the way people paused now before walking past. In the way strangers looked twice and chose not to ask questions but just offered a nod. Quiet, respectful, and sometimes that was enough. Sometimes the most profound transformation doesn't need a speech. It just needs someone to fit wasn't. Headlines that made the moment last. It was what came after. 2 weeks had passed since the quiet thunderstorm that began in a gun shop and spread across the nation like a ripple across still water. No protests, no marches. Just a silence that refused to be ignored. The photo of the 12 SEALs standing in formation inside the store had become iconic, printed in newspapers, hung in barbershops, framed in veteran halls. People didn't forget it because they didn't want to. It wasn't about Fumet, it was about finally remembering the men who had never asked to be remembered in the first place. And still, James Beckett said nothing. He still walked his 2 miles every morning before the sun got too high, still stopped. At the corner diner for black coffee, in his usual booth, the one near the window with the broken blind, he read the paper. Kept to himself, occasionally nodded at familiar faces. Always alone. But something had shifted in town, quietly, deeply. No one ever asked to sit in his booth, no, not out of fear, but respect. People stopped interrupting him to guess his age or ask if he'd served. They already knew, and more importantly, they finally understood that he didn't owe them anything. Then, one Monday morning, something changed. The bells above the diner door jingled softly, just like they always did. The cook barely looked up from the grill. The waitress Lisa glanced. At the clock 8:06 a.m., then back at Beckett's booth, and froze, he was no longer alone. 12 men stood quietly near the entrance. The same 12, no formation this time. No ceremony, no uniforms. Just jeans, boots, caps, low, quiet eyes. One by one, they approached the booth. The youngest of them stepped forward, barely 30, maybe eyes steady, posture squared. "Sir," he said softly, "if it's all right, we'd like to sit with you." Beckett looked up, slow and measured. His expression didn't change, but his hand moved just slightly, ping the edge of the table twice. Then, pulling his coffee cup closer, the signal wasn't verbal, but it was. Clear. "You're welcome here." The SEALs took their seats, in complete silence. The booth was meant for Forma B5, if you squeezed. But somehow, all 12 of them made space. Like a team, like always. No one else in the diner spoke. Phones weren't raised, no pictures. Everyone understood instinctively. This wasn't. For Instagram, this was something older than social media. Something sacred. A reunion without words. A tribute without sound. For the next hour, they just sat, sipped coffee, ate quietly. Passed sugar and butter like civilians, but every person in that room would later swear. It was the most powerful thing they'd ever seen. At the end of the meal, one of the older SEALs, mid-50s, salt and pepper beard. Trident tattoo faded along his forearm, reached into his pocket and placed something on the table in front of Beckett. It was a small black box. He didn't say a word. Inside was a polished brass challenge coin. One side bore the SEAL insignia. The other had a single phrase etched in bold letters, "For the ones who never asked." Beckett stared at it for a moment, then gave the faintest nod. He closed the box and slid it into the breast pocket of his worn jacket over his heart. The men stood, one by one. They placed their hands on Beckett's shoulder as they filed out. Nothing dramatic, just contact, a signal. "We see you. We remember." The youngest was the last to leave. He hesitated for a second. "Chief," he said under his breath, "I wasn't even born when you left the teams. But my CO told me your name on..." The first day said there were men we'd never meet, and that we should make sure we were the kind of men they'd salute if we ever did. Beckett looked him in the eye for the first time that morning, then extended his hand. They shook once, firm, silent, complete. Outside, the team disappeared the same way they'd arrived, quietly, without fanfare. No flashing lights, no interviews, just a reminder. And the world kept turning about, not untouched. That afternoon, a letter arrived at the local high school. The principal opened it carefully. No return address. Inside was a typewritten page and a map coordinate. At the top of the letter were 6 names. 6 men confirmed Mia in a 1970 jungle. Up, at the bottom of the letter, one line had been added in handwriting. We didn't lose them. I just hadn't finished bringing them home yet. It was unsigned, but they knew. They framed it and hung it in the school's main hallway next to the American flag. Right under the words, "History lives here." Back at the gun shop, things had changed to ... No one touched the display case anymore. The replica rifle still sat there, locked beside the burned flag patch and the photograph. But now it had a title plaque, handcrafted in dark walnut. Master Chief James Beckett, SEAL Team 3, he asked for nothing. We gave him silence. His brothers gave him everything. Veterans still walked in sometimes just to stare. Some placed their own patches next to his. Others left notes. One handwritten card simply said, "You saved my dad in Mogadishu. He never forgot your name. Now neither will I." James Beckett never asked for recognition. But he got something more. Powerful. He got remembrance, not in parades or headlines, in the stillness of men who showed up, in the ripple effect of respect that moved through schools, homes, units, and strangers' hearts. In the way people began to look at every quiet old man wearing a dusty cap with new eyes, wondering, what has he seen? Who did he save? What did we forget to ask? And maybe that was the lesson. Some heroes don't raise their voices, they raise. Others, they don't write their stories, they live them, and when the time comes, their brothers return it to fight. Not to shout, but simply to sit beside them, and ally see what was always there.